every Pokemon not named Rotom is incredibly ugly. Hello everybody, my name is Kenya K, and this is the second part of my two-part video series about my favorite orange light bulb. If this is the first time you're watching, hello! I suck at drawing. I've made it my personal mission to make Rotom as viable as possible using the infinite powers of Fakemon and terrible game design. It's me. I am the terrible game designer. In my previous video, I made all new Megas for Heat and Wash Rotom, which you can find linked down below. So for this one, I'll be making all new ones for Frost, Fan, and Mo Rotom. Plus, after getting my foot in the Fakemon door by redoing the toaster and the washing machine, I think I've gotten some pretty good, much needed experience in drawing the Pokemon art style. Surely this will make the remaining 3 much easier to make, right? So taking what I learned from the previous 2 forms, I wanted to do something a little more wacky, which by the end of it, I think I did a pretty good job. So when talking about vehicles specifically made for snow, there's really only one vehicle that comes to mind. Well, unless if you're talking about a sled or a toboggan, but I kind of wanted to do motorized vehicles, so sleds are out of the question, and I don't know what a toboggan is. As a result from all that practicing with the previous 2 forms, I got something that I really liked right away. Having a strong image of what I wanted in my mind definitely helped out too. But, like with every Fakemon design, it's best to experiment a bit, because you might come up with something that you like a lot better accidentally. Finding the right pose for your Pokemon is also another huge step in making it look good. Since I'm going for a snowmobile design with ski elements added in, I definitely wanted it to point downwards, like it's sliding down from a giant slope or a mountain. Having it jumping off of a ramp and getting huge snowboard air is also another option, but in this case, I thought it would be cooler if it just slid down instead. Let's save the looking up poses for stuff like Rocket Rotom. And now that I've gotten a look that I pretty much like, next was to add all the electric-y bits. And yeah, I actually did remember to put everything on separate layers this time. Well, not exactly here since it's just a draft, but in the refined version, I definitely remembered to put it on separate layers, I promise probably. So interestingly enough, the part about this that stumped me the most was how I wanted the electric trails to look. Since I said in the previous video that I definitely wanted each trail to have their own unique look, I wasn't really sure what to give this one. But eventually I gave it some neat, cool looking hexagons, which I think looks a bit like ice particles, and I think it looked pretty neat. And if you haven't guessed already, I picked design number 3 for my final version. You can definitely tell which one I like most by the amount of time I spend doing the draft. Now all that was left is to remember to put everything on layers. You are going to put everything on layers, right? Different layers? Past me, you don't want to do this. Past me, you please put everything on different layers past me. Well, it looks like past me has definitely not learned his lesson. Them's the breaks, I guess. Speaking of breaks, remember to like the video. Nailed it! Oh, wait, no, never mind. Looks like past me, it's finally remembered that layers exist. Let's go! Let's go, past me! You finally did it! You remember that layers are a thing. Let's give past me a congratulatory handshake or something. Ew, no, never mind. Germs, yucky. So, unlike Rocket Rotom, I didn't really want to just copy-paste the motor treads this time, since they're facing slightly apart from each other, so I just drew each one individually. Well, I mean, not that I copied-pasted the one for Rocket Rotom anyways, because I just didn't think of it. But now that I knew what I wanted the trails to look like, I definitely had a lot of fun drawing them. There's something about these long, pointed shapes that I really like the look of. So, one thing that I definitely struggle with as a storyboard artist is definitely the color. Since I normally don't mess with it that much, I just do general black and white gradient shading. But the limited color palette of Rotom here definitely helped me figure out which one I wanted, since my options were pretty much already made for me. So all I had to do was adjust the actual saturation and the brightness, well, basically the actual color of the pink. Next is shading in the Pokemon art style, something that I also have trouble with. But since I did the previous two forms, I think I arrived to what I wanted it to look like a little bit sooner. I still don't think it's 100% the Pokemon art style shading, but what you gonna do? Try and try again until it's just right. Work harder, not smarter. Don't do this. This is a horrible idea. There's many YouTube tutorials that exist that tell you how to draw in the Pokemon art style. Though, every time I start to shade the electric bits, I always think, man, I am a genius. How does he do it? I guess I'm just naturally talented. Naturally talented at putting very simple gradients onto things. Ski Rotom, the plasma Pokemon, because Snowmobile Rotom sounds significantly less cool. After Mega Evolving, Blizzard changes to Ice Spinner, and Thunderbolt changes to Wild Charge, because ice types don't have a reliable physical ice move. Thanks, Game Freak. Just like the previous two, Mega Rotom gets a massive boost in physical attack power and speed, in exchange for a little bit of attack and defensive stats. And as a recap, it also gets the Ghastly Motor ability, which makes it immune to ground as well as prevents recoil damage, because combining abilities is a thing now. Thanks, Calyrex. As for the moves, while there's definitely an argument to give it Ice Hammer instead of the Spitty Spin, I generally don't like moves that have less than 100 accuracy. Mostly because High Jump Kick terrifies me. And while I could just invent a new move, it's not really something I want to do for Ski Rotom. Duh! Next Mega! And here we are, Fan Rotom, finally. Now, if you thought that I would take my experience from the previous 3 Rotom forms and added them to this one, well, sorry to say I had absolutely no idea what I wanted this one to look like. No matter what I did, it just kind of looked a little funny. Not exactly the cool factor that I really wanted. I didn't even know if I wanted it to be a helicopter, or a plane, or a jet, or a fighter, or some sort of sci-fi thing, or even like a drone, conveniently forgetting that there already is a drone Rotom. Now after finagling a lot around, I think I got a shape that I was kinda happy with. You see that I mess around with this one a lot. It's not exactly the final version that I went with, but it's something along the lines of there. I'm definitely getting closer. And then now, all that was left was to play around with it a bit more to see what I liked. I wasn't even sure what kind of air vehicle that I even wanted. Out of all the Rotom forms, this one is definitely the one I struggled with the most in the drafting phase. At this point, basically I only had 2 things that I really was happy with. 1, the actual arms, and 2, the general pose of the entire figure. I definitely tried my hardest to make the drone design work, like the quadcopter thing, but I eventually thought that it wasn't gonna work, so I just scrapped that idea. Also, I found out that drone Rotom is already a thing, so yeah, I can't use that one. I was at my wit's end. But eventually I just said, you know what, I'm gonna take a break, I'm gonna come back to this later, I'm gonna drink some water, touch some grass, eat some snacks, play some Yu-Gi-Oh!, maybe not in that order, and eventually I came back and thought, you know what, I'll just pick a jet design. I'll just pick a jet design and go with it and see what happens from there. And after ignoring my own advice and still attempting to make it into a helicopter, I finally buckled down, and this is where the real work started to begin. And by real work, what I actually mean is putting the entire thing to the side and seeing if I could make any designs that I liked better. Yeah, sometimes design is like that. You make something you really like, but you don't like it, and then you do like it, and then you decide to put it to the side to see if you make anything new. And after trying a few more designs, I eventually went back to that first jet one that you see right here. I mean, what are you gonna do? So the art's just like that. You gotta keep trying until you got it, and even when you got it, you gotta try some more. Art isn't about the result, it's about the snacks you ate along the way. And after I got the jet boosters at the back just right, I think it's finally time, after all this time, to finally make it into the final version. And after that entire fiasco, inking everything in the final version should go much smoother. Also, now that we have some downtime, can we just take a moment to appreciate the background music? Take a moment to appreciate Sensei's theme from Advance Wars Reboot Camp? I mean, just listen to it. Sorry, I don't know what came over me. So, now onto the color. Now, just like the other ones, the color was pretty much already picked out for me, so I didn't really struggle there. My main concern was whether to make the faceplate basically the same orange, or should I make it a blue color, and then I just decided an orange. And next is the shading. It wasn't really that difficult, it's same as before. Basically to shade it the way you shade a machine, and you're pretty much good to go. I sometimes go back to the previous Rotom forms to see how I shade it, but other than that, it's pretty much just all intuition. By intuition, I basically mean I just ad-lib everything. Believe it or not, I find the highlights for this particular Rotom form to be a little more difficult than the shading. But once I got that, it was time to shade the electric bits, which I always enjoy. And after finding some highlight designs that I like for the trails, we're finally done here. Jet Rotom, the Plasma Pokemon, the Mega form of Fan Rotom. This Pokemon's top air speeds can reach up to Mach 3 when fully charged, which, in case you didn't know, is 3 times the speed of sound, and even faster than most military jets. While Mega Evolved, Thunderbolt changes to Wild Charge, and Air Slash changes into Jetstream Rondo? Well, we'll go over that in a little bit. First, I'd like to touch on its ability. That's right, Jet Rotom gets a brand new ability, since Levitate basically does absolutely nothing. Ghastly Turbine. Its durable electric turbine allows the Pokemon to draw in all electric-type moves, as well as protecting the user from recoil damage. Instead of taking damage by electric-type moves, it charges the user, allowing its next 2-turn move to be used immediately. Oh boy, that's a whole lot of text. Can you tell that I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player? Firstly, Jet Rotom essentially gets a modified version of Lightning Rod, but instead of boosting its special attack, the next 2-turn move that it makes, like Fly or Solar Beam for example, gets to be fired off without waiting for a whole nother turn. And next, it also gets the usual recoil immunity. But can Yeti? I hear you say. Rotom doesn't even get any 2-turn moves. Well, my wide-eyed Timmy, that's where Jetstream Rondo comes in. Jetstream Rondo, a flying physical move with a base power of 100 and an accuracy of 100. The user flies into the air at supersonic speeds, then crashes down onto the target on the next turn, whipping up a wind that doubles the speed stat of itself and its allies for 4 turns. This does half damage if the target protects itself. Alright, let's break this down. Firstly, it acts just like Fly, in that it's a 2-turn move that makes it immune to most moves, save for things like Hurricane or Smackdown. Next, once it hits, it makes a Tailwind effect for your team, boosting your speed for 4 turns. After that, just to rub salt in the wound, it hits through Protect, still getting its Tailwind off, but at only half damage. Finally, due to the Ghastly Turbine ability, Jetstream Rondo can be used instantly if hit by an electric-type move beforehand. Whew! It's fine. That power creep definitely doesn't exist. Now, there's absolutely an argument that says it's already broken enough, even without breaking through Protect. And in fact, Protect's probably the one counter that stops this Pokemon from being pre-nerfed Mega Kangaskhan tier. But you know what? I say it's fine. It's fine, because Megas ain't ever gonna be allowed in a mainline Pokemon game ever again. Let's just move on. Okay, here it is. The final Rotom form. Here's the final culmination of all my efforts. Did I do pretty good? I'm actually surprised to say I actually had a pretty easy time with this one. Out of all the Rotom forms that I drew, Grass of all things was probably the easiest. I pretty much had it in my head exactly what I wanted right away. Still, I had to choose between the vehicle. Now, I was either going to do a Jeep or an ATV. I tried both of them, and in the end, well, I'll let you guys see which one I liked more. But in either case, for both versions, I wanted something a bit more bulky, a bit more powerful looking. Well, mind you, it's still gonna have the exact same extremely fast, extremely powerful attack stat. But at least for the looks, I kinda wanted it to look kind of like a gorilla. So I eventually went with the ATV approach, because I got an idea in my head that maybe I can use the wheels like hands and feet, to kind of just help pose it to look more like a gorilla. And I also thought, you know what, why don't we just add some monster truck elements, just because, you know? So I made the back wheels ginormous compared to the front, and I think it looked really, really good. Then after that, I just had to connect the front wheels. So I connected it with the electric aura, as you'd probably predicted, which makes it look like really powerful arms in my opinion. Really gorilla-like. Now, for why exactly a gorilla? Well, I wanted something to be super fast, super powerful, super intimidating to your opponent. When they just see it, they're just gonna go like, why, Game Freak? Why did you put this in? Huh. Kinda reminds me of another Pokemon. Another very fast gorilla that one-shots things. Wonder what that could be. Next is the part where I ink everything in. It wasn't that difficult. I basically just had to be careful with the perspective, and I had to try to match the tires to each other. Again, I could have just copy-pasted them and then just traced over them in the final version, but I decided not to for whatever reason, because I'm dumb. So for the actual design, it's kind of a combination of an ATV, and then there's bits of monster truck, and I also added a little bit of dune buggy elements to it, which you can primarily see in the headlights and the little thing that sticks out at the roof. Not really sure what it's called, but it's there. The exact position of the face is always a little trouble for me, because the face is essentially an organic thing put on top of an inorganic, basically piece of machinery. So I always have trouble of the exact proportions and where exactly on the front plate where I want it to be. So for the electric aura itself, specifically the arms, I struggled a little bit in finding a design that I liked, since I wanted each design to stand out from the others. Eventually, I decided on this one thorny design completely by accident. I originally wanted this one just generic sparks, but then I thought, you know what, this looks like thorns. You know what, I'm gonna use this. A lot of the stuff that I do is just accidentally messing around and finding it by mistake, which I'm not complaining about. Next was the actual shading. I actually had a really easy time of it this round, since I was already super used to it by this point, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I did mess around with the actual tires a bit, but not nearly as much as the other ones. It's basically just very simple shading. Actually, I will say, however, that generally drawing the undercarriage of most vehicles is actually more difficult than you would think, since the underside is usually where all like the guts and components are, the really ugly components, and plus whenever you try to find reference material of it online, there's almost none there, since most of the photos are of the top part or the actual parts that you're supposed to look at. I did manage to do it by just basically simplifying everything into basically an untextured rectangle. Which, I mean, it works for the Pokemon style. This isn't supposed to be completely realistic anyways. If this was realistic, I would be terrified. Oh god. Next, I played around with the highlights and the particles of the electric aura a little bit, but in the end, I just decided to keep it simple. ATV Rotom, the Plasma Pokemon, and the Mega form of Rotom. The horsepower of this Pokemon is able to cut through any dense terrain without even slowing down. While Mega Evolve, Thunderbolt changes to Wild Charge, and Leaf Storm changes to Wood Hammer. And since it's not a flying type, the ability is back to Ghastly Motor. Though really, Grass Electric only takes neutral damage from ground anyways, so But since Wood Hammer is a high-powered recoil move, just like Flare Blitz and Wave Crash, that should make up for the ability not being as useful, making Ski Rotom being the only one on the short end of the stick. It still ain't no Grassy Glide Rillaboom, but ATV Rotom's not too bad either. And that was all 5 Mega Rotom forms! Trying all of these was definitely a challenge in a style that I was absolutely not used to, but either way, I'm really happy with how they turned out, and I definitely learned a lot. I originally only wanted to do just Jet Rotom, but I'm really glad that I decided to draw all 5. But which Rotom was your favorite? Is there anything you'd like to change with these forms to make it more interesting? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you'd like to see more from me, I stream most Fridays and Saturdays at 3 PM PST. The weebs are these. But that's gonna be it for me for today. So if you've been watching for this long, I thank you for watching. I've been Kenyaki, you've been beautiful, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!